There's a street in central Tel Aviv, a street that appears ordinary to anyone walking past it. Cars move through it. Apartment towers stand quietly above it. Cafes open their doors every morning. But something else exists beneath that street. Something built for a moment when the world above might stop functioning. Something designed so a war could still be commanded, even if the city above it went dark. Now Iranian officials claim their Kheibar Shekan missile struck that exact zone. Not just another building, not a random location, but the underground command infrastructure believed to sit near Israel's most sensitive military district, a place only a handful of people are supposed to fully understand. Yet what happened next made the situation even stranger. Satellite images of the area suddenly became blurred. Security around the district tightened. And official explanations became unusually quiet, which raises a question few people are asking. Did a missile just land near Israel's hidden command bunker? Or did something far more sensitive happen beneath the streets of Tel Aviv? Welcome to Currency Archives, the place where complex geopolitical moments are examined carefully, before the global economy fully reacts to them. Before continuing, if you are someone who has lived through decades of world events, oil shocks, financial crises, and moments when global markets changed overnight, then this channel is built exactly for viewers like you. So take a moment and subscribe, the same way someone saves an important news channel they never want to lose. And while you are here, tell us something in the comments. Where in the world are you watching this video from today? Because events in one city can sometimes send signals that travel across the entire global economy. For most people, Tel Aviv is a modern city filled with glass towers, busy streets, and crowded cafes. It is one of the most watched cities in the Middle East. Satellites pass over it every day. Surveillance systems monitor its airspace. Military radar tracks everything that moves near it. Yet beneath this ordinary-looking city lies something very different. Hidden under the streets of central Tel Aviv is a network of underground facilities that few people ever talk about. These facilities are not shopping centers or subway tunnels. They are command structures built for war. They are places designed for one purpose: to make sure that a government can continue to operate even if the world above ground begins to collapse. One of the most important of these areas sits near the Israeli Ministry of Defense compound known as the Kiryat. For decades, this location has functioned as the operational heart of Israel's military command system. In many ways, it serves the same role that the Pentagon serves in the United States. But the real command structure is not visible from the street. It sits underground. According to investigative research published over the years, several hardened facilities are believed to exist beneath this district. Among them is a location sometimes referred to in reports as Site 81. Analysts describe it as an underground communications and intelligence center. The facility is believed to be heavily shielded, designed to protect sensitive electronics from electromagnetic attacks or cyber disruption. Such places are built with a specific assumption in mind, that in modern warfare, surface infrastructure may not survive. Power grids can fail, communication towers can be destroyed, cities can lose control of basic systems. But governments still need command centers. Underground facilities are built to solve that problem. They allow military leadership to maintain control of operations even during the worst possible scenarios. They provide secure communication links between commanders, intelligence units, and active military forces. In simple terms, they allow a country to keep fighting even if everything above ground is damaged. For decades, this type of infrastructure has been part of Israel's defense strategy. The country's small geographic size means it cannot afford to lose command control during a crisis. Everything must remain coordinated. Air defense systems, intelligence networks, and rapid response military units all depend on centralized communication. Because of this, command centers in Israel are built with extreme levels of protection. Thick, reinforced concrete layers, electromagnetic shielding, redundant communication lines, independent power systems. The goal is simple: survival. These facilities are designed to withstand strikes that would normally disable ordinary buildings, which is why recent reports have raised serious questions. Iran's Kheibar Shekan ballistic missile is not a simple rocket. It is part of Iran's modern missile program, developed under the authority of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, a military organization responsible for many of Iran's advanced strategic weapons. The missile was designed to travel long distances while maintaining improved accuracy. Its name carries symbolic meaning in Iranian military messaging, referencing historic battles that are often used to frame modern geopolitical conflicts. But symbolism alone does not explain the current situation. What matters more is capability. Ballistic missiles, like the Kheibar Shekan, follow a high-speed trajectory through the atmosphere before descending toward their target at extremely high velocity. In modern versions, maneuverable re-entry technology allows the missile to adjust its path during the final stages of flight. This makes interception more difficult. If such a missile were aimed at a command district like the Kiryat, it would represent something more than a simple battlefield strike. It would represent a strategic signal, Reports circulating through regional media claim that an Iranian missile landed near this defense zone in central Tel Aviv. Some accounts suggested the impact occurred extremely close to buildings connected to Israeli leadership. One Israeli outlet described a previous strike during earlier tensions as landing a stone's throw from locations associated with senior leadership offices. If accurate, such proximity carries enormous implications. Command centers are normally surrounded by multiple layers of defense systems. Radar detection, missile interception batteries, and early warning networks are all designed to prevent hostile projectiles from reaching sensitive targets. Yet the recent claims suggest something unusual happened. Following the reported strike, the flow of information became strangely quiet. Media reporting slowed down. Official statements remained limited. In highly sensitive security zones, governments often restrict information to prevent adversaries from learning about potential vulnerabilities. But the silence also created new questions. If a missile reached the command district of Tel Aviv, how close did it actually come to the underground infrastructure? And more importantly, was the strike meant to destroy something, or was it meant to send a message? Most wars are fought where cameras can see them. Missiles streak across the sky, tanks move across open land, aircraft appear on radar screens. But the most important part of modern warfare rarely happens above ground. It happens underground, beneath cities, behind reinforced concrete, inside rooms built to survive the worst day a country could ever face. In central Tel Aviv, beneath the busy streets and glass towers, analysts believe a quiet architecture of command has been built over many decades. It is not visible on city maps. Tourists walk past it every day without knowing it exists, but military planners know exactly where it is. The area surrounding Israel's Ministry of Defense complex, known as the Kiryat, has long served as the operational center of Israeli defense planning. From this district, military leaders coordinate intelligence, air operations, and national security responses. Yet the buildings seen from the street are only the surface layer. The real command infrastructure is believed to lie underground. Facilities like the one often referred to as Site 81 have been described in investigative reports as deeply protected communication hubs. Their design follows a concept that became common during the Cold War: the idea that governments must be able to continue operating even if cities above them are under attack. Military planners call this principle continuity of command. If leadership loses communication with its military forces, the entire defense structure can collapse within hours. Orders cannot be transmitted. Intelligence cannot be shared. Defensive systems may operate blindly. For this reason, command facilities are designed to survive events that ordinary buildings cannot. They are placed underground, reinforced with layers of hardened concrete, protected with electromagnetic shielding to block electronic disruption, connected to independent power sources and secure communication cables. Inside such structures, large command rooms often operate around the clock. Rows of analysts monitor radar screens, satellite feeds, and intelligence reports in real time. Decisions that affect national security can be made within seconds. During periods of conflict, hundreds of personnel may rotate through these underground spaces every day. Some analysts have described Israel's underground command system as one of the most sophisticated in the region. The country's security environment has required decades of investment in rapid response infrastructure. Israel cannot rely on distance for protection. Unlike larger nations, it has very little geographic depth. A missile launched from across the region can reach Israeli territory within minutes. Early warning systems must therefore operate with extraordinary precision. Because of this, the Kiryat complex is believed to function as the nerve center of Israel's defense coordination. But underground command facilities have a paradox. They are built to be invisible, yet everyone knows they exist. Adversaries understand that destroying ordinary buildings does not necessarily weaken a nation's ability to respond. Command structures are the true centers of decision-making. This is why military strategy has gradually shifted toward targeting infrastructure that controls information rather than infrastructure that simply produces damage. If communication systems fail, even the most advanced military equipment can become ineffective. This is where the reported missile strike becomes significant. Iran's missile program has evolved steadily over the past 2 decades. Unable to match the advanced air forces of some regional rivals, Iranian strategists focused on a different path: ballistic missile development. Missiles provide a form of deterrence that does not require control of the skies. They travel quickly, they are difficult to intercept, and they can reach strategic targets far from their launch sites. Among these weapons is the Kheibar Shekan missile. Unlike older ballistic systems, this missile is designed with improved guidance and maneuverability during the final stage of its descent. This capability increases the likelihood that the missile can approach a target area with higher accuracy. If such a missile were aimed at a normal building, the strategic message would be simple: destruction. But aiming near a command district sends a very different signal. It suggests that the attacker is not simply trying to damage infrastructure, it suggests they are testing something. Testing air defense systems, testing interception timelines. testing how close a missile can approach a sensitive command zone. In strategic terms, this type of strike can function as a form of calibrated pressure. It forces the targeted nation to evaluate whether its most protected facilities remain secure. Following the reported strike near Tel Aviv's defense district, information about the event became unusually limited. Public updates were scarce. Satellite imagery of certain areas appeared altered. Officials avoided detailed explanations. Such reactions are not unusual when sensitive military locations are involved. Governments frequently limit information in order to protect operational security. But analysts often pay attention not only to what is said, they also study what is not said. If a missile reached the outer perimeter of a command district, even without direct damage, it raises a strategic question. How secure are the systems that are supposed to be untouchable? Because the most powerful defense infrastructure in the world operates on a simple assumption, that the enemy will never reach the center. But history has shown something important about warfare. Assumptions rarely survive the first serious test. And if a missile can approach the nerve center of a country's military command, then the conflict may be entering a very different phase. In modern geopolitics, the most powerful weapons are not always used to destroy something. Sometimes they are used to communicate, not through speeches, not through diplomatic meetings, but through carefully chosen moments of force. Military strategists often describe this as strategic signaling. It is the use of controlled military actions to send a message that cannot be ignored. If Iran's Kheibar Shekan missile truly landed near Israel's central defense district in Tel Aviv, the event would not simply represent a battlefield incident. It would represent a message written in the language of power. But messages in geopolitics are rarely simple. They are designed for multiple audiences at the same time. The first audience is the adversary itself. Israel's defense doctrine has long depended on deterrence. The idea is straightforward. If potential enemies believe Israel can respond with overwhelming force, they will hesitate before launching attacks. For decades, this doctrine has relied on technological superiority. Advanced missile defense systems, precision air power, and intelligence capabilities have given Israel a strong defensive posture in the region. But deterrence works in both directions. Iran's leadership has spent many years building its own strategic capabilities. Instead of focusing primarily on fighter aircraft, Iran invested heavily in missile development. Ballistic missiles allow a country to reach distant targets without needing to control the skies. For Iranian strategists, missiles represent leverage. They are a way to demonstrate that Iran cannot be ignored in regional power calculations. The Kheibar Shekan missile is one example of this strategy. Developed within Iran's missile program, it represents a new generation of weapons designed for improved precision and longer reach. Unlike older missiles that followed predictable paths, modern designs can adjust their course during the final phase of flight. This maneuverability increases the difficulty of interception and allows missiles to approach targets with greater accuracy. But the importance of the weapon is not just technical, it is symbolic. The name Kheibar Shekan carries historical meaning rooted in ancient battles often referenced in regional political narratives. Naming weapons after historic events is a way of connecting modern military power with deeper cultural symbolism. It is a reminder that geopolitics in the Middle East often operates at several levels at once: military, historical, and ideological. Yet the second audience for such a strike is not Israel. It is the broader region. Countries across the Middle East closely watch moments like this because they reveal shifts in the balance of power. A missile reaching close to a high-value command district signals that strategic capabilities are evolving. Regional governments ask difficult questions after such events. How effective are current missile defenses? How accurate are the new generation of ballistic weapons? How quickly could such systems be deployed in a wider conflict? These questions do not remain within military circles. Energy markets, shipping companies, and international investors also monitor geopolitical signals coming from the region. Because conflict in the Middle East rarely stays contained. The region sits at the crossroads of some of the world's most important energy supply routes. Oil shipments move through narrow maritime passages, and any sign of instability can influence global markets. This is why geopolitical analysts often examine not only the physical damage caused by a strike, but also the strategic timing of the event. When a missile is launched, the timing itself can carry meaning. Was the strike meant to escalate tensions, or was it meant to demonstrate capability without triggering a full-scale conflict? Strategists sometimes refer to this as operating on the escalation ladder. Each action represents a step upward. Nations try to send messages strong enough to influence behavior, but controlled enough to avoid triggering uncontrolled war. Precision strikes allow states to operate within this delicate balance. They demonstrate reach, but leave space for interpretation. Yet there is also a third audience for such actions: domestic populations. Both governments involved in a confrontation must demonstrate strength to their own citizens. Military actions can serve as signals of resolve, showing that leadership is willing to defend national interests. In this sense, the missile becomes part of a larger narrative. It reinforces political messaging. It shapes public perception, and it influences how other states interpret the strategic environment. But analysts studying this particular event noticed something unusual. After the reported strike near Tel Aviv, the flow of information slowed dramatically. Media coverage was cautious, official confirmations were limited, satellite imagery of certain areas appeared less detailed than before. In modern conflicts, silence can be as important as action. When governments choose not to explain an event, analysts begin to look for clues in indirect sources, delayed reporting, satellite analysis, infrastructure changes, and statements from regional actors. These fragments slowly build a picture, and that picture leads to a critical strategic question. Was the missile strike meant to test Israel's defenses? Or was it meant to demonstrate that the next phase of the conflict could reach places that were once believed to be untouchable? Because if command centers and defense districts are no longer assumed to be secure, then the balance of deterrence in the region may be entering a new and uncertain phase. Most people see a missile strike as a military event, a launch, an explosion, a political statement. But experienced business leaders and investors often see something very different. They see economic signals. Because throughout modern history, geopolitical events in the Middle East have rarely stayed confined to military headlines. They often move quickly into financial markets, energy supply chains, and global trade networks. If Iran's Kheibar Shekan missile truly reached the defense district of Tel Aviv, the immediate question for military analysts may be about defense systems and escalation risks. But for the global business community, a different question emerges. What happens to markets when the perception of regional stability begins to shift? The Middle East sits at the center of the world's energy system. A large portion of global oil production flows through this region, and much of that energy moves through narrow maritime corridors. Even small disruptions can ripple outward across the global economy. Shipping routes can become more expensive to insure. Energy traders begin adjusting expectations. Financial markets react to uncertainty. These reactions often happen long before any physical supply disruption occurs. History has shown this pattern many times. During previous periods of regional tension, oil prices have responded quickly to geopolitical risk. Investors often move capital toward assets they believe are safer during uncertain times. Currency markets react to shifts in global confidence. In other words, markets begin to price risk, and risk is one of the most powerful forces in global finance. When investors believe geopolitical tensions may escalate, they begin to prepare for potential disruptions. Energy companies adjust supply projections. Shipping firms evaluate insurance costs for vessels traveling through sensitive regions. Financial institutions monitor whether conflict might influence global commodity flows. This is why strategic events like missile strikes receive close attention from economic analysts. They are not simply military moments. They are early signals of possible economic shifts. Consider how the global economy has evolved over the last several decades. Supply chains now stretch across continents. Energy markets operate in real time. Financial trading reacts within seconds to breaking news. In such a connected system, regional instability can travel far beyond the battlefield. For entrepreneurs and business leaders, understanding these dynamics has become increasingly important. Companies operating in logistics, manufacturing, technology, and finance all rely on stable global systems. A sudden geopolitical shock can change those systems faster than many organizations expect. Insurance premiums for shipping may rise. Energy costs may fluctuate. Investment decisions may pause while markets wait for clarity. None of these reactions require a full-scale war to begin. Sometimes the perception of risk is enough. This is why experienced investors often watch geopolitical developments with careful attention. They know that moments of tension can reveal deeper structural changes in the global environment. A single event may not cause immediate disruption, but it can change how governments, markets, and institutions think about the future. And that change in perception can alter economic behavior. The reported missile strike near Tel Aviv therefore raises questions that go beyond military strategy. If regional tensions continue to rise, how might energy markets respond? If escalation risks increase, will investors begin moving capital toward defensive sectors? If shipping routes become more sensitive to conflict, will supply chains adjust their planning? These are the kinds of questions that financial analysts quietly begin asking when geopolitical signals appear. But there is another reason why events like this matter for the global business community. They remind decision makers that geopolitical stability cannot always be taken for granted. For many years, global markets have operated under the assumption that large-scale conflict in critical economic regions would remain limited. Governments and international institutions worked to contain tensions before they could disrupt global trade. But the world is changing. Strategic competition between nations is intensifying. Military technologies are evolving, and political alliances are shifting in ways that sometimes create new forms of uncertainty. For entrepreneurs building companies and investors allocating capital, these shifts create a new environment. Understanding geopolitical risk is no longer optional. It has become part of strategic planning. Because sometimes the most important warning signs in the global economy do not appear in financial reports or market forecasts. They appear in events that seem, at first glance, purely military. A missile launch, a restricted news report, a quiet silence from officials. Each of these moments may seem isolated, but together they can signal something larger. The real question now is not simply what happened in Tel Aviv. The real question is whether this event represents a temporary episode, or an early indication that the geopolitical risk environment shaping the global economy is entering a new and unpredictable phase.